So we're talking with Jackson Teeley, who is a writer of musical theater and a recent winner of our New Voices project. He is currently in the Berkshires, summering, but he normally lives in New York. So Jackson, talk to us a little bit about, first let's start talking about how you found out about our New Voices project and submitted, and what the process has been like for you to have us begin workshopping your work.
Well, I found out about the New Voices project from a colleague of mine who had seen some of my work and suggested that this project might be a good fit and would be, a good option for me and my work, and it certainly was, and it's been great. It was so strange to me sending work in and then being on the other side of the country, sort of being updated in that way and being sent videos of the progress. That was pretty new for me, not being able to be in the room or, even be nearby. But it was great being able to still watch the work progress via the videos that were sent and, watch new people do it. That's some of the best work and some of the best feeling is watching brand new people that you don't even know doing work and making choices with it.
Right. It can give you some real insights as a writer, can it, to see how the different kinds of choices that different actors will make.
Most certainly, and especially actors that you necessarily haven't even met.
Right. So they're working only with what they see on the page, and they don't get an opportunity really to check in with you. So you really get a sense of what's actually on the page and what might come from that.
Indeed, and seeing that the intentions or the choices that you were thinking writing it, or just that you have always seen other people do, is not necessarily, what other people would do, and
right.
What certain actors would choose to do.
Lots of options, sure. So talk to us a little bit, Jackson, about your background, growing up, getting educated, what brought you into musical theater, and ultimately, you're at the BMI workshop in New York now, is that right?
Yes, it finished up in, recently, and that is what I've been doing in New York. And I come from a very artistic family. My father is a brilliant musician, and my mother as well, and my mother and people on my mother's side of the family have been very theater oriented. But the musicianship and the theater thing has never come together in the past until I sort of realized that I had these two worlds that I'd always been in, and I wanted to bring them together and realize that writing musical theater was how I wanted to meld those two things together. And, like so many theater geeks, I did theater in high school and realized that theater and making theater was such a remarkable thing and made me so happy. And it wasn't until, I guess, late high school that I realized that I did want to be more on the writing side and wanted to not just, be in shows, but write them and make my own choices and my own work. And so I studied music composition at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, which was a great choice for me, instead of, going in for a musical theater performance, which could have been an option. I wanted to very much focus on the musical side of things and really learn how music truly works and the theory of all of that. And then while there, I was able to do a lot of theater and still have my hand in that world. And, I was able to perfect my writing and my lyricism by just being around a lot of theater and being around music, obviously, when you're studying.
And so what degree did you get while you were there?
I got a BM in music composition. And then I was a part of the musical theater minor, and I didn't actually complete the minor, but I was able to do a lot of good work a lot of good work with what I was able to do and given and the extent that I.
Fantastic. And what came after that once you finished your work there?
Well, I graduated and I basically 6 months later, I moved to New York. I moved to Brooklyn. And I've been there actually about a year at this point. Mm-hmm. And I was submitting work. I had a song of mine, actually Hipster, the song that was at New Voices. That song was done at New Music.
A Little New Music, the organization out here, A Little New Music?
No, I'm trying to remember the name. It's Nymph. I'm just trying to remember what that.
Oh, New Musical Theater Festival. Nymph, New Musical Theater Festival.
They were doing,
Yeah, they leave the T out, which is confusing, but it's Nymph.
Yes, indeed. It is a little confusing, and it's always when they have. I feel like all these names are pretty similar.
There's a lot of acronyms to deal with.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I had the song "Hipster" done there, which was actually, it was sung by a boy, which was interesting. I've never considered or thought about that before, but it was an interesting choice on their part to make that song for a boy. And I was submitting work, and I actually did the show Arrowhead that song is from, and I was talking about earlier. I did that show at a festival in February, which was an incredible chance for the work to grow, and you know how festivals can be.
Yeah,
it was,
what festival
trying.
was that? Yeah, what festival was that?
It was Winterfest in NYC. It's about 40 shows done there, and I saw a few of them. They were very, very good work, and it's it was a mix of plays and musicals, and it was. Again, I just can't stress. You can write on your own or collaborate in the room, but actually having it put on stage with actors is just the most vital thing in the world. And any opportunity, big or small, to do that, it's so important to take up.
Sure.
And that's all I got.
Right. And then from there, at what point did you get connected with BMI?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry, we're having a little bit of sound issues here. Not sure what's happening. Maybe if you try, we haven't tried turning on original sound. I don't know if that little up in the upper left corner, I don't know if that'll make a difference. We haven't had this echo issue before, and now it seems to be gone anyway. So maybe it was momentary. So let's try again.
Technology. What thing is it?
I wanted to ask then, what led you to BMI? At what point did you decide to apply to BMI and become part of that workshop?
That program has always been on my radar, even back in high school. I was always interested in it, and obviously because of the work that you can do there and the people who have come out of that workshop. And it's always something that I've wanted to do, and this was the year that I decided to apply. And it was nerve-wracking to say the least, where you submit work via email, and then you go in for a live audition, and but I was accepted and to participate, and it has been great. Being in a room with like-minded writers and being able to learn from them and from what you're seeing them do, and where you're all given the same assignment, and then watching how other people write it in a way that you might not have even considered.
Mm-hmm. I know, that's always fascinating.
It's fascinating, and it's such a good learning process.
Now, Jackson, the material that you submitted to us, you were a solo author. You did the book and the music and the lyrics on those pieces. At BMI, were they teaming you up? Did you have to collaborate, or were you able to work on your own projects?
That is how. I mean, there's a few exceptions to that rule, but you pretty much need to collaborate. They pair you up every week, and yeah, that's also an incredible learning experience, figuring out the best way for you to work with another person, someone that you don't necessarily know very well or don't know their work or any of that. And it's important to learn how to do that.
Is that something you're thinking you might do?
That's such a huge part of theater, is just collaborating. That is one of the most vital parts. Not necessarily, you can be a solo writer, and there's plenty of amazing solo writers, but when you're doing a show, you will most certainly be collaborating with
lots of other people. That's right. Did collaborating with other writers change how you think about collaboration? Do you think going forward that you will continue to be a solo writer, or you will collaborate, or will you continue to mix the two?
No, I think mixing up. I love every aspect. I love music, the lyrics, and even book writing. I love doing all three, but that's not. I don't think I have to be dogmatic about wanting to do all three. Just because you like it doesn't mean that there's other people who are better at it. I would imagine that I will work with many a book writer in my future, because book writing, it's music and lyrics are my top priority usually. And even writing music with a different lyricist, which is what, in BMI, what happened. It's something that I would very much consider and want to do in the future.
Great.
Mix it up.
Cool. Can you talk to us a little bit about projects that you have going on right now? Specific projects. Do you have stuff in the works? Do you have something that's happened recently or is coming up?
Yes, actually, next week we are going into auditions for a reading of, again, the show Arrowhead, which is going to be produced at New York Film Academy. They have a lovely musical theater program there, and that's, again, exciting to be able to also, because they're going to do it, and they have their director and their team, and as the writer, it's again kind of being able to step back and not be right in the center of the production, being able to actually watch it and watch it grow and watch other people work it. It was a remarkable thing. And then I am working on a stage adaptation of a short musical film that I actually made with some colleagues of mine 2 years ago, called What We Were. And I'm adapting it, I'm elongating it and elaborating on it was a 25-minute short film originally, and wanting to turn it into something much bigger, and so something a little more powerful. And that I will be workshopping in August here in the Berkshires. So. Awesome.
And are you drawn to the idea of musical theater on film and perhaps on the internet? That does seem to be happening more and more these days.
I very much am. I think it comes from a place where when done well, I think musicals on film or on television can be really remarkably good and remarkably new. Being able to take the intimacy of film acting and lend itself to musical theater, something that is, because of the fact that it's on stage, you have to heighten things, and heightening, theatricality is vital as well, but sometimes there's things that do not lend themselves to the stage, like intimate songwriting and acting. And that's something that thrills me about the concept of doing more things on film, because it opens up a whole new world of what you can do and what you can just visually represent. It's like, my example is always the sound of music is an iconic film, and the musical, because it's supposed to be a film, it's about these people living in one of the most beautiful places, like these Alps and these mountains, and and such a broad, and with this background of war, it's lends itself so much to the film because you can actually show what's happening instead of just, putting it on stage, have Mary Martin sitting in a, paper mache tree. What did you say there?
I said you just paint a backdrop, of the Alps in the background. It's not quite the same thing. Yeah.
It's being able to actually fully represent it on film is something very.
Well, that dovetails nicely into a question, Jackson, that we've been asking everyone that we've been interviewing for this process, which is a fantasy question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning and discover that you had been gifted $100 million to be used for the development of new musicals, how would you want to spend that money?
Well, that's a remarkable question. Fantasizing. Who does that? Well, I would very much want to put that money, some of that money I would love to go towards being able to produce work of mine, obviously. But then, I don't know, that's a lot of money, and something that kind of goes back to the question before this about film and television musicals, where the having something filmed makes it so much more accessible, and because we all aspire, or most of us probably do, to be have a show on Broadway, but the accessibility of that has always bugged me, because not only just as a writer being able to access the money required and even just being able to find a space on Broadway, it's so difficult because it's this limited pocket of theater. So and it's so expensive. So what I'm getting back to what I was saying, what we were talking about before, being able to lend that money to actually, develop works that can be accessible, like stage works that can be accessible to everybody, and not just people who have, $400 to spend on a 2 hours of a beautiful but expensive show in New York.
That's an interesting idea, and I know there are some companies like Fathom Events that have been filming stage musicals and then making them available in movie theaters. So that is an interesting trend, and if there were $100 million to do that, you could make a lot more things accessible to a lot more people. That's a lovely idea.
Yes, and there's plenty of problems with the world of theater, but accessibility is definitely one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to wrap up, Jackson, with one final sort of two-part question, asking you, and it dovetails into all of this, what you see is the future for musical theater, and if you had the opportunity to give advice to writers who are now working on the musicals of tomorrow, what would you want to tell them?
Wow. What would I want to tell them? Well, there's the side of me that sees, at least in the near future, I do see this trend towards making musicals for specifically not just like filming a staged musical and then being able to present it that way, but genuinely writing something that's supposed to be on film, like La La Land and other upcoming, like The Greatest Showman. I watched the trailer for this week, which looks stunning, and that does seem like the trend that I see is going to start happening with musicals, which is great. And if it's done well, it's great. If it's not done well, then that's a different story. But I see that as the future. But as for stage theater, I want the future, again, going back to accessibility, to have shows that can pack a punch and that can be popular and have an awareness to them, like the sensations of Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen, but figure out a way to, again, make it more accessible to more people and not so expensive, because if I'm being honest, if I look at the future of what I see New York theater becoming, it does seem like it's going to be more and more these mega hit shows that are coming to Broadway that might like just sit there for 20 years and be the huge sensational hits and then sort of take up, not that they don't deserve their space in New York, but take up space in theaters and have all this money behind it. It's good and bad.
It's harder for more voices to be heard on Broadway that way, isn't it? It's harder to
more voice
yeah.
and having access to
more
those
chances.
voices. And if I was to give advice to the future writers of musical theater, I would say write in your own voice. Don't listen to, or always be influenced by others, but do not try to imitate or make something that just sounds like something else, because that's easy. It's a very easy thing to do and a very easy trap to fall into, saying, oh, this works, so why don't I just do a carbon copy of that and I'll change it a little bit and it can be its own freestanding thing. That's fine, but if you're not being true to yourself and your artistic voice, then it's not going to be worthwhile. And people and the audience will also see the fact that it might not be as authentic as it could be.
That's great. That's great advice, Jackson. Just to make sure you hang on to your own voice. That's advice we could all use. Stay true to yourself.
And find your own voice.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
You should locate it.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Jackson. And we'll be watching your career and seeing what's next for you and looking forward to it. And we appreciate you chatting with us today.
I appreciate chatting with you too. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.